Yo, guys, so we're going to be talking about how to get into comics in 2026. Now, a lot of people say it's really hard to get into comics, which is understandable. Yeah, it feels like a challenge, but it really isn't in this day and age. Obviously, there's different ways. Now, it depends on whether you're a Marvel fan, DC, even if you're into some of the indie ones, such as Image, I guess Dark Horse, and there's a few others out there. So I'm predominantly a DC guy. I do like me some Marvel stuff, but predominantly I do read mainly DC, especially now that I got it back into it myself currently in 2026. Now I haven't read comics and I kept up with it, but I haven't really read it and kept up with them for quite a while. So I was like, where do I start as a casual fan and someone that really wants to get back into it? So I was like, well, maybe I'll just pirate it. Okay, well, I did it for a little bit, but you could go to a local comic book store and you could definitely pay. Talk to them if you have one local to you. That's one way you could get into it, or you could. What I'm doing right now, and I think the best way to actually enjoy and keep status of where you're at, other than writing it down and stuff like that, is actually subscribe to like either DC Universe Infinite or Marvel Unlimited. Those two are, I think, such a good deal for what you're getting. Predominantly, I think I use that more than my Netflix and other things that I actually pay for as well. So I'm also doing a DC challenge of starting back, at least where I wanted to. I think it's a good time was 1986 was probably around a good time to start for me because I really wanted to go back. At least, obviously I read comics in the 90s, but there's a lot I missed, because it's not like I could have looked online back then and been like, oh yeah, this is what I really want to read. So it was basically what I just had access to is what I got. So obviously I knew back then I mainly, I read Maximum Carnage back then. I read Task Force, Justice League Task Force. I read a few other things, several other things. Obviously they after that was much more scattered, especially when my brothers didn't stop getting into comics. I kind of had I didn't get as much after that. Obviously, I couldn't afford omnibuses and stuff like that. I think that's a great way if you want to collect physical is get omnibuses because they're really really good, and hardback. But if you're not really too worried about like getting digital and you just kind of want to read it for the lore, I think I actually pulled up what is it um, DC Universe Unlimited. So, I mean, look at all the stuff you get. I believe it's only $13 a month, which, if you think about that, is just a steal if you're just worried about reading the comics. Because most Marvel comics are $5, $4.99. I think a lot of DCs are still $3.99. I could be wrong, or they could be $4.99 as well, depending on the comics. So, if you really want to save money, $13, and you have access to over 30,000 comics, 35,000 comics at least on DC, and I'm pretty sure you have just as many on Marvel Unlimited. So uh, I think it's a no-brainer for me personally. Obviously, yeah, you could pirate them, you could find them online. I just the only reason I mainly signed up and I'm paying for it is one, I like DC, um, and I like the little bit quality, the quality you could get. So I'm actually on Aquaman number 3, 1985, I believe, which, yeah, it actually came out in 86. The series started in 85, but it came out in number 3 and came out February 5th, 1986. Obviously, without actually pulling up the cover, you could actually see access to it. So eventually I'm going to read The Flash, uh, Teen Titans Spotlight, Justice League, 1987 through 96, according to January 7th, 1987. Batman, 1987, which is number issue 404. I kind of have a whole list. It made it a lot more easier to track down on how I'm going to do the challenge. It's not really a challenge, it's just me going back and like, oh, originally I started back in Superman Batman, and because that's issues I actually kind of kept up with when I was young, and I was like, But then I was like, man, I really need to go back, at least not to the beginning, not to like the 1940s or anything. But I think it's a no-brainer to sign up for these things if you have the money, and especially if you're not like if you actually want to get deep into comics. Now, if you're reading like 10 issues a week, obviously that's definitely a no-brainer. I mean, now you could obviously pirate it and whatnot if you really wanted to, but I think for the experience that I wanted and to actually reread through 85 to 2026, obviously it's going to take me years just to do that. And that's why I also haven't subscribed to Marvel Unlimited yet, because I have so much DC stuff I want to get through. And I guess I could have done it simultaneously, but I think that would just be much more of a mess. Unfortunately, if you're going into, there's still some issues of Green Lantern. I think 1 through 49 is missing because the writer ended up being PDF. So yeah, unfortunately they took all his books. I'm glad in a way, but like I'm like now I'm gonna have to pirate those just to get the whole story if I wanted them. They could have just erased the name or put someone else's name on it. Even I don't know. They could have probably done something else and just gave him no credit for it. But because that's 40 some issues, and there's a lot more of them. But I think that's one of the few ones they don't have. So I'll probably have to pirate those 1 through 50 or 1 through 49 just to see the story. I'm not, to be honest, I'm one of the few comic readers that'd be like, I can't name the writer half the time on issues. It's just I'm like, I'm not the one that I care about the story. I'm not, which is nice, and I'm glad people do it. But it's like bands. I don't know singers' names half the time and stuff. I just care about the escapism of the story. I don't really care about the wrappings and stuff. So I mean that might offend a lot of elitist comic book people, but I'm on Aquaman right now. Neil Posner was the one that wrote it. I mean, it has it there, but I always skip the writers. Like Frank Miller did 404 Batman. It tells me, but I'm not. I just kind of never kept that in my memory bank. So that might piss off a lot of elitists, but that's just the way I like to do things. So yeah, I did read Zatanna, the first issue that came out back in '86 as well. So I mean, it's very cool. I like this app, and I'm gonna try to read everything at least that I'm interested in. Obviously, if a series is really bad, I'll try to power through because, most of them you could just kind of power through, but and yeah, I'm not really paying full price for it. Like it's being like I'm not paying issue price. I'm not paying like $5 or $6 an issue or $2.99 or whatever it even cost at the time. I'm only paying the monthly subscription of $13, I think. So I think it's a good deal. I really do. Now, I think it's a great time to get into comics. Even if you want to get into the new stuff, you're on DC Unlimited or DC Universe Infinite. You're a month behind if you want to get into the new stuff, which is fine. If you're not worried about keeping up with the Jones and stuff like that, you definitely could still a lot to read. Now, if you were just reading common, monthly stuff, you probably could subscribe to both DC and Marvel, and that will only be $26 maybe. I think they're around the same price, and I think that's a freaking awesome deal, to be honest, man. Because even if you spend 26, that'd be like 4 or 5 comics you would have to buy, if you wanted to keep up with everything. And yeah, I know Marvel's 3 months behind, I think, on their top tier, which kind of I might even be 6 months, but if you want to keep up with stuff, it's still pretty dang cheap. But yeah, and I think on Marvel you could buy the digital ones if you actually wanted the digital copies. But I know at least on Marvel Comics, or was it DC, if you buy the physical issue, you also get the link. I think it's the Marvel one. That at least they used to do that. So, But I think now's a great time to get into comics. Obviously, a lot of people try to compare manga and comics and stuff. And yeah, obviously, I'm a bigger DC fan than Marvel. I love Marvel stuff, but um, I'm more into DC. But you could enjoy it all, man. Especially right now, if you know, you know, you could read manga, and I have a small manga collection. But I've been reading manga. Obviously, I'm not just a comics guy. Obviously, I game as well, but I'm just trying to stay what I do, you know. But no, I think it's a great time to get into comics. I don't want to keep saying that, but it's the easiest time to ever to get into comics if you really want to get into comics. So, yeah, that's all I'm doing. I'll see you next time.